So this is a conversation I have been really looking forward to. Welcome, Gabby.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
So we were just having a quick chat. I should tee people up. I think this is going to be a two-part podcast. There's so much good stuff I want to talk about with you.
Feels like it's been a very long time getting to the good stuff, but yeah, there is a lot in there, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. There's so much for us to talk about. I was scrolling through some of the posts that you've done in the membership over the last couple of years, and it is nearly 2 years now, and it was actually making me a bit emotional. So I'll try and keep a lid on it as we talk about stuff.
I think I might have to as well, thinking about it.
So I should explain to people, Gabby is a very special guest. I met Gabby online a couple of years ago. Do you actually remember how you found me? I was trying to find it and I couldn't work it out.
I can tell you, it'll probably actually put some kind of context to this whole conversation. So we got Rogue in September 2020 and everything was great. And then around April 2021, I think it was, it got to the stage where Dean used to take them out for a walk every day while I was at work together. And he said to me one day, she just can't settle after a walk at all. And I then said, right, well, I'll take them out in the evenings, somewhere quieter, so you haven't got, because when you go to work, they get left for a few hours, so she can settle then. And we'd gone to a woodland area near where we live on the Wednesday. I remember this so clearly. And I'd noticed that she was quite stressed during the walk and she got really foamy around her mouth. And I'd even commented to my niece that when I was wiping it away, it was just coming back again straight away. And I said, she looks really stressed because she's foaming a bit. It's obviously really panty, and that's a sign. And the next day I took them back by myself there, like I did quite frequently. We got through the first little bit of parkland to get to a field, and two dogs barked relatively closely, but we couldn't see them. And she basically freaked out, lost her brain, and bit Jasper. And I panicked, didn't know what to do. Really, really panicked. Got it dealt with quite quickly. Sat down in the middle of this field with Jasper on a really, really long line, Rogue holding her harness, put the phone down on the floor, phoned my mum on loudspeaker and said, I'm literally on this road. You're going to have to drive here. You're going to have to get here. I can't get the dogs back safely by myself. You need to come and help me out. And mum came back up when she finally found me. I let Jasper the lead and just hoped that he would run to her rather than running off, which he did. And then I just started Googling support for dogs. I thought we were going to have to give her up, to be honest with you. And I just literally Googled and Googled and Googled. And then your page alerted me on Facebook that you existed. And I think I joined that day.
Wow.
I was quite desperate when I found you, to be honest with you.
Not know that. So, I mean, I've had the pleasure of seeing just how much progress someone can make with a dog that is really struggling, and there's a long list of stuff, but let's wind it back a little bit. Just start off with quick introduction to the two dogs in your life. So start off with Jasper.
I'm going to start with Jasper. Yeah. Jasper is the best boy. He is basically your Fergus. He is so chilled, so relaxed, he's so happy. He's content around every dog, every person. The only struggle with Jasper is he wants to eat 24/7. He's a Labradoodle. And he just literally wants to eat the whole time. But apart from that, he is your perfect dog.
And he's nearly 12 now?
He's 12 in 2 weeks' time, yes. So he was originally my husband's dog. I met Jasper when he was 5. So I've had the genuine pleasure of having him in my life now for just over half of his life. And I adore him. He's perfect. And during lockdown, we decided that Jasper could really do with a friend. It'd be really nice for him to have another dog to play with because he liked playing with dogs and things like that. So we started looking, and as you know, during lockdown, the price shot up astronomically. And I was like, we're not paying £4,000 for a puppy. We're just not doing it. And one day Dean came back from a walk and said, guess what, I've met this person out in the field with Jasper, and they've got a rescue dog from Romania, and it didn't cost that much, and this dog's amazing, and I've joined the group and we're going to get one. And I was like, yeah, that's fine, we're looking for the dog. Very naive dog owner at this point, I have to say. And we found this dog we liked, but we were going on holiday and they won't hold them whilst you're away. It's not fair on the dogs. So we couldn't get him. And the night before we were due to go away, I saw this beautiful black Labrador kind of collie dog with a lovely, beautiful streak down her nose. And I just said, Dean, I think this is the one. And he said, yes, it is. And we literally reserved her that night, basically made her ours, with her due to come over in the big 3-4 weeks time from then. So yeah, that's how we basically found Rogue, named because of her white streak.
And it does run right the way down her forehead and down her nose. It's quite unusual, isn't it? It's not just the nose, it goes all the way up.
All the way up to almost like her blade bit at the top, the lab blade you've got. And we fell in love with her, reserved her, and then basically looked forward to getting her. The night beforehand, we both, neither of us slept. Normally you get a dog's coming along and everyone's like really excited, and we actually both couldn't sleep because we were worried we made the wrong decision, in so much as what if we've messed up our family home, what if things aren't calm. But I'd done a lot of research and I was like, do you know what, you've got the rule of 3, haven't you? The 3 days to decompress, 3 weeks to settle in, and then 3 months to feel like they're at home. And I said I clearly remember saying to Dean's mum, so by Christmas I'm going to have 2 Jaspers, because they'll both be settled and calm and great. And I genuinely thought that's all you needed to have the perfect dog. And so Rogue,
what did you know about her background?
Only that she was 4.5 months old when she was coming over. Her mum was a street dog. I believe that she was either born on the street and rescued, in inverted commas, I'm not sure if that's always the right term, within 2 or 3 days of being born, or that she was born just after her mum was rescued, simply because we have the specific date of her birth. And I don't think you can be that specific if you don't know. But her pet passport specifies the 28th of April 2020 as her date of birth. And that was it. And I'm sitting there talking to you now thinking, oh my goodness, how naive were you? What are you doing, taking on a dog literally with that little preparation and knowledge? And as you know, and a lot of people may know, particularly in the pack group, we lived in a pretty small house at the time, 2 up, 2 down. It was checked as being suitable to have a second dog in there. It wasn't like you can have what you want. They did come and do a house check and make sure we were suitable and the house was suitable. I don't know that it was, but we made it work with Jasper. We didn't think anything more of it. So we went and collected her, and she travelled over from Romania for 2.5 days in this back of this transit in a crate. She'd obviously been bitten a couple of times. I think what they did was, when they let them, they stopped to give them breaks and things, and they were a quite responsible like transporter. They'd clean out their crates so they weren't sitting in dirt and things like that. But obviously you've got scared dogs, and I think they created 2 dogs at a time whilst they cleaned the other ones out. So you stick 2 scared puppies into a crate together in a very highly stressful situation. And she did have a couple of bites on her, nothing serious. She'd been with those dogs for pretty much the last 4 months. We rocked up home, brought her in the house, everything seemed great, not a problem, fantastic. And at that point, Dean was working different shifts. So when he was on a daytime shift, my mum and my niece would come in and take them out for a toilet before he got back, give them some food at lunchtime, give them a little stretch of their legs. And I used to watch on the cameras. I'm a bit of a camera stalker when it comes to the dogs, and I'd see her get so excited and she'd jump up and she'd be so good. So pleased to see my mum and my niece. And the only thing I could attribute all the changes in her to were her reaching adolescence just as lockdown kicked in, the second lockdown in December 2020, which was a long lockdown. It was the winter one, so people weren't going out so much. And she had her first season during lockdown. She got, I'll use the word, mildly attacked by a Newfoundland, in so much as she was out on a walk, she was on a lead, this Newfoundland was the other end of the field, saw her, she barked twice, he flew up the field, was trying to charge at her side. No puncture took place or anything like that, but it obviously had a bit of an impact on her, because the next day when Jasper went to walk past her on the same side, she growled a bit at him, and that was the first time we'd seen any kind of potential concerns, but nothing more than that. And honestly, we didn't really think too much more of it, because she carried on seeming perfectly normal. And then as things started opening up in this spring, before it even opened up completely, summer 2021, she just clearly couldn't cope with the outside world. She was the dream dog inside. She was so relaxed and comfortable with Dean and myself. She was comfortable with Jasper. She couldn't handle my mum coming in even to the front door at that point. She'd lose her mind, whereas beforehand she'd been absolutely fine with her. People couldn't come in the house. She lost her brain if she saw people in the street. We couldn't take her near dogs. Apart from Jasper, it literally was this dog that was so lovely, had done a complete 180 in about 3 months, and we didn't see it coming to prevent it at all. So
I was going back through, because we did the behaviour consultation in March 22, and I was going back through the notes that I did in preparation for that, and I'd made a list of the struggles. Shall I just run through them?
Yeah, go on then.
I'm not saying we're going to talk about all of them, but it was a bit of a perfect storm, I think, of things that you've had going on. So I'd written down, so struggles with other dogs, talked about the Newfoundland, so dog reactive.
Yeah.
She was definitely better if she had a long approach to another dog, but if dogs suddenly, dogs and people suddenly came around the corner, she was very startled by that. She was reactive to that. She was lead reactive, so she struggled more on the lead, but obviously you were not comfortable, quite rightly, having her off the lead. There was the whole toileting in the garden, or toileting, full stop. We're definitely going to talk about that one.
I've forgotten about that, to be honest with you.
Toileting where she couldn't go, and so we'll definitely go into toileting. In the car, barking when she was in the car, struggling in any kind of confined spaces like crates or the boot of the car, struggles at the vets, prone to resource guarding,
little bits,
obviously the home was tight for space, which for two bigger sized dogs that with one of them was struggling. I think that's the struggle. I don't think it's that the house is too small per se, but for dogs that you're trying to have a degree of separation, obviously that was tricky.
On that note, just because it's relevant there, I think, because I review and assess a lot, I think the biggest issue with the small space in the house was that she was terrified of what was outside the front door. Right. And she could never, ever, ever get away from it. It was in the lounge. She was on the stairs, straight away she could see it. She couldn't get away from it downstairs at all. And I think it just permanently had her, that one trigger left her beyond stressed every single day. And she could never come down because it was always there.
Yeah. So you had struggles in them. You had concerns about them being together, but also they didn't like being separated. What else? There was obviously the cats was an issue. Novelty was an issue. Things like when the Christmas lights started going up, that was all a trigger. People coming round, movement of people in the home, and a multi-dog household. So it was just I can't remember. That's everything I had written in, but there was so much, and I think that was it's so overwhelming for a lot of people that probably have written down maybe 25% of those things. There was just so much going on. So I want to dive into some of them to sort of put a bit more information on it for other people, like what it was like. And where do you want to start? What was the I'm quite interested to start with the toileting one.
I was going to say that, yeah, because that was a
one.
really big struggle.
So talk to us a little bit about, was it always a problem?
So from the start, she would never ever poo outside. So we had a cluster home, so it didn't have a back door. So we had a garden, but you had to walk 20, 30 steps round to it. And it was our private space. And she would happily poo in the garden, but she'd wee sometimes out the front of the house, but she would never, ever, ever poo there. She was just too alert, too scared of what could come around the corner any second. And so it would be a case of morning and evening, I'd take her out for a wee, and most of the time she would go. And then potentially we'd have to either take her around to the garden, hoping it was quiet and calm enough for her to have a poo, or we'd have to take her out, because even now, she's not great, but she will not poo if for even 1 millisecond she thinks there's something that could threaten her, scare her. She's too vulnerable, and she's so alert to that. It's untrue. I know a lot of dogs have to get their time to feel comfortable in their spot, but even in a safe space, she wasn't safe.
And this would go on for days, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it was at the stage where Dean would say to me, well, just leave her, she'll have to go in the end. And I said, but look at how she gets before she can go. For me, that's really cruel, to leave her struggling for maybe 2 or 3 days. I mean, people are uncomfortable if they don't go. Just think what a dog's like when they can't understand. And it's not because they don't want to go, it's because they're too scared to. And I just said, I can't leave her like that. And it really, really came to a head in June 2001, when we were out in the garden and a neighbour came out and she was sniffing by the fence. He leant down exactly where she was the other side. She barked twice. She's got a loud bark. I said, right, come away, which she then immediately did, which I was quite relieved about. And he lost his mind, started shouting over the fence how out of order she was, how she was ruining their lives. This tirade and a bit of calm defense from Dean, to be honest with you, came back, but this was the length of the garden. And you could just see her eyes, they wailed up. She just panicked beyond belief, to the extent I had to say, right, you go in your house, we're going in ours, this has to stop, she's terrified. And from that day onwards, she never once pooed on our property again, in any way, shape or form. So the result of that was walking her wasn't great. She couldn't toilet very easily, even a wee sometimes out the front of the house. She couldn't go in the garden. So I had to make a conscious decision that I was going to drive her quiet places to go to the toilet 2 or 3 times a day.
Yeah.
And that was very, very, very intentional. That was, she needs whatever she needs, I have to give her, and that's what she needs. So I'd have to get up early so I could take her somewhere quiet before work in the morning. When I got back, they'd have a quick bit of something to eat, and then I'd be straight out for 2 or 3 hours every single evening to make sure that she pooed twice a day. And yeah, she just literally, she was just too scared to go anywhere near where we lived at all.
Yeah. And it's hard because there's quite a few people I've worked with that have had toileting struggles. Either they can't go in the garden or they can't go on walks. But what was so difficult in this case was the one safe space where she used to be able to go, the garden, became the unsafe space, but she still didn't feel safe to just go out for a trot around the block to be able to go out the front. So I remember the impact it had on you of, you know, you'd be like 11 o'clock at night, she needs to go, I've got to get her in the car, I've got to find somewhere to go with her, just to get her to go to the toilet. And yeah, it was the perfect storm of toileting struggles. So
there was a couple of occasions I was walking around some grassy bits, trying to find some safe grassy bits to go to at 2 or 3 in the morning for up to an hour, just to try and get her to go, because I knew the second we walked back in the house again, she'd bark again or she'd get stressed. I remember one weekday morning, actually at 2:30, 3 o'clock, actually walking up and down this grassy area, strangely near where we live now, because I happen to know it from my mum living there, in tears, just saying, please, please just go to the toilet. I've got to go to work in 2.5 hours. I don't want to leave you like this. It literally was that stressful.
Yeah, really. Yeah, it gets me now, because I know how, well, I don't know, but I felt through you just how tough it was. And I was also looking back at there was a post that you put in, I think it was Christmas time, and it was that first celebration of toileting in the garden.
Yes.
For the first, it had been like 5 or 6 months, and she went to the toilet in the garden, and there's never been so much celebration in the group for a dog going to the toilet in the garden. It was just
yeah.
And the interesting thing, there was no, I mean, we'll talk about sort of the training and stuff like that, but there was no one specific thing that would help that kind of struggle. It was very much a holistic approach of everything that was going on. So we'll talk about that more in the round.